Hi, I'm Bridget. Welcome to my kitchen where I elevate the everyday with inspiring recipes that are doable for any cook. I'm of the mind that we should never wait for a reason to celebrate. So tonight, I've invited a group of friends for supper just because. Food is part of the fun, of course, and tonight we're keeping it simple. A sheet pan dinner with shrimp, sausage, and lots of vegetables. And for dessert, a healthy, decadent chocolate pudding. My friends and I get together often for a glass of wine and great conversation, but sharing a meal from time to time offers a whole different way to connect. For tonight's meal, I'll do most of the prep before they arrive and then get their help with a few things before we sit down to enjoy our meal. First up, we'll make the pudding. You know me, I always like to pile on the vegetables, beginning with dessert. The secret ingredient in this healthy chocolate pudding, it's steamed sweet potato. 2 cups steamed for 15 minutes. This recipe is so quick to put together. We'll start with the steamed sweet potato in the food processor, and I'm just going to whir it till it's nice and smooth. So it's looking pretty smooth. I can start putting the rest of the ingredients in. We've got a teaspoon of pure vanilla. And I have 1/3 cup of coconut milk. You can use any kind of milk, whether you want dairy or non-dairy. And I'm adding 3 tablespoons of tahini. You could use almond butter or peanut butter, but tahini adds a really beautiful richness to this recipe. And then I am adding 1/2 cup plus 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. So that's 10 tablespoons in total. And I'm just going to give that a little stir because when I whir this again, the cocoa powder is going to puff everywhere. So I'll just incorporate it a little bit. And then for the sweet, this recipe doesn't need a whole lot of sweet because of the sweet potato, of course. I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of honey and 3 tablespoons of maple syrup. You could use all honey or all maple syrup, but I find sometimes the flavor of honey can overpower. So by combining it with maple syrup, it mellows the flavor a little bit. And you still get the beautiful flavor of honey. Oh, and maple syrup too. So 3 tablespoons. If in the end you don't find this quite sweet enough, you can always just add a little bit more honey or maple syrup and a little bit of salt. Just a pinch. And we'll whir that until it's nice and smooth. Let's see how we're doing. I'll just scrape down the edges a bit. So we'll just whir it for another couple of seconds. There, and it's done. Now at this point, you could just put it right in the fridge until you're ready to serve it. But for simplicity tonight, I'm going to portion it into the actual little bowls that I'm serving it in. And I will serve it with berries. The sweet potato gives this pudding such a beautiful texture. Now I have made it with canned pumpkin in a pinch, and it's good, but it doesn't have the same full rich flavor that it does with sweet potato. If you want to omit the sugar altogether in this, or at least the added sugar, you could substitute dates for the maple syrup and honey. So you could use 1/2 cup of dates that have been soaked in boiling water for about 10 minutes, and then that should soften them enough so they puree beautifully into this mixture. Another healthy addition to this pudding is chickpeas. You could add up to 1/2 cup of chickpeas. I would start with 1/4 cup and judge the flavor and the texture to make sure that you don't overdo it for your palate, but it does make it extra healthy. And the chickpea version is really delicious, swirled into plain Greek yogurt. It's a good breakfast treat. This recipe makes a generous 6 servings. They may not look huge, but it's quite rich, so this is a very filling serving. And now for a final flourish, I'm just going to top them with a little sprinkling of cocoa powder. You could also just drizzle them with honey. And they are set, so we can move on to our main dish now. Sheet pan meals are a great way to feed a crowd without having too many pots to wash. Tonight's sheet pan dinner is loaded with vegetables, along with chicken sausage and shrimp. We'll get started with potatoes, which I have pre-cooked just until tender. I'm going to slice them in half, toss them with oil and a little bit of Cajun seasoning, and get them in the oven while I chop the peppers. Although these are already cooked, keeping them in the oven a little bit longer, or cooking them for another 45 minutes or so, is going to make them almost creamy, and they'll be so sweet and delicious. This is a pound of new potatoes. You don't need new potatoes if you can't find them. Any potato will do, or any kind of waxy potato, that's the best. So a tablespoon of olive oil, and then a teaspoon of Cajun seasoning, or you could use Southwest blend or the Portuguese piri piri. I'll just toss them a little bit with the oil, so everything is well coated. I've lined the cookie sheet with parchment paper. And we'll just spread them on the cookie sheet with a little bit of the oil left in the bowl. And we want to make sure that they're all separated. I'm going to flip them too. Now our chicken sausages are going to cook alongside the potatoes. These are seasoned chicken sausages, sun-dried tomato and garlic and herb, made by a local butcher just down the street. I've poked them a few times so they can release their steam. We'll get these in the oven, then I'll chop the vegetables. For my crew tonight, I'll be using 3 sweet peppers and 3 zucchini. I'll start with the vegetables. I'm going to chop them into chunky pieces, just so everything cooks evenly. So I'm using 3 peppers tonight and 3 zucchini. I have made this with lots of other vegetables as well. You can really mix and match the vegetables that you use in this dish. I've used a fennel bulb in the past. Just any kind of softer vegetables. I would avoid, with this recipe anyway, I would avoid any kind of root vegetables, just because they take longer to cook. With all the color, this dish looks so beautiful on a plate. I'm going to serve it family style, so when it's all set, I'm going to tumble it onto a big platter and bring it to the table and serve that way. You could also add an onion to this mixture. A red onion would be nice. So really, whatever soft vegetables are in your fridge or that you enjoy would suit this recipe. Before they go in the oven, these vegetables are going to be tossed with a clove of garlic and a teaspoon of basil. You could use oregano in place of basil, or an Italian mixture, or a Greek mixture. Just whatever you have on hand, whatever suits your palate. I'll add a little bit of oil to the bowl, about a tablespoon, before I add the other seasoning. Well, we've got a teaspoon of basil. And a generous clove of garlic. I had to cut this garlic clove in half, it was pretty big. I'll toss to coat. Want to make sure the oil has made it everywhere. Oh, and I almost forgot. We're going to add some salt to this. I would say 1/4 teaspoon. We're going to add these vegetables to the sheet pan with the potatoes and sausage. I'll tumble them right on top of the potatoes. I do want to keep the sausage separate, just to control how they cook, because they'll finish cooking before everything else is ready. So I'll actually remove the sausage near the last step. So I'll just tuck them off to the side. Make more room for our vegetables. Now remember, the vegetables, or the peppers and zucchini anyway, are going to shrink a lot as they cook, because we still have shrimp to add to this, and asparagus. And back into the oven for 30 minutes. Now for the shrimp, we're going to toss it with another tablespoon of olive oil and 2 cloves of garlic and 2 teaspoons of our Cajun seasoning. And then we'll let it sit until it's time for it to go in the oven at the 30-minute mark, when we know that our other vegetables are pretty much cooked. You can always add more or less seasoning to this dish depending on how much heat you like. I want to make sure that the garlic is well distributed, because it's going to add so much flavor to this shrimp. We'll set this shrimp back in the fridge until it's time to add them to the vegetables. But in the meantime, I've got asparagus to prep. I've got about 14 or 15 stalks of asparagus here. I'll just trim them and slice them into thirds. I'm just testing the ends till I get beyond the tough part of the lower stalk, because that ends up a little bit stringy when you cook it. And into thirds. I'll just set that aside. When we add the shrimp to the vegetables, I'll add the asparagus as well. My friends will be here any minute now, so I got a few more things prepped. I've got stuff set for our drinks, for the salad, and the fruit to go with dessert has been washed. So some of my friends have arrived and they're going to get started with the drinks. We're just waiting for a couple of others and they can help with the salad and getting the rest of dessert ready. But in the meantime, I'm ready to pull our vegetables out of the oven and add the shrimp and the asparagus so we can finish things up here. So the vegetables have softened nicely. They could use another 10 minutes, so the timing is perfect. But the sausages are ready, so I'm just going to remove them to make room for the shrimp and asparagus. And also I don't want the sausage to overcook, especially their chicken sausage, so they do cook more quickly. I'll add the shrimp and the asparagus. And then toss everything together. Again, I'm gonna try to keep it in an even layer. And the colors are beautiful. Adding the green was a really great addition with those peppers. All right, so this will go back into the oven for 10 or 12 minutes. I'll check it at 10 minutes, see if the shrimp is cooked. If it needs a little bit longer, we'll just give it a bit more time, but it is almost ready. Now I am going to slice these sausages into rounds, because when everything is cooked, I will add them back to the mixture and toss it before I tumble everything onto a big serving platter. Cheers! Chin chin! All right, back to work. I'm just going to put together a quick honey Dijon vinaigrette to go on our salad greens. This is my house vinaigrette that I make all the time. 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard, 3 tablespoons of vinegar. This is white wine vinegar. Oftentimes I make it with cider vinegar, apple cider vinegar. So 3 tablespoons. And then a heaping tablespoon of honey, which amounts to about a tablespoon and a half. Then I'm going to add a pinch of salt and give it a really good shake. And once everything is well combined and there are no little lumps of Dijon mustard, I am going to add 1/3 cup of oil. Today I'm using walnut oil. You could just use regular olive oil. Sometimes almond oil is really nice in this. And again, I'll give it a good shake to emulsify it. And that's set. So as soon as the vegetables come out of the oven, I'm going to put them on a serving platter and we'll take everything into the dining room to enjoy our meal. All right. So we are ready. There.
It looks lovely.
Spontaneous or planned, weeknight or weekend, don't wait for an excuse to get together over a meal. Cook something uncomplicated and make some memories around the table.
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you so much.